Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartfelt tales of love, resilience, and personal growth. In today's story, we follow Olivia and Lucas, two strangers brought together by circumstances beyond their control. What begins as a cold, transactional marriage evolves into a moving journey of self-discovery, forgiveness, and true love, set against the backdrop of small-town Montana and the bustling city. Their story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope and transformation are possible. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's inspiring journey. Like, comment, and share to spread the message of love and resilience. In a quiet corner of Montana, nestled among rolling green hills, lay a small town where life was simple but not without its hardships. Among its residents was Olivia, a young woman who carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Orphaned at a young age, she had lost her parents, once wealthy and well-respected in the community, to an untimely accident. Their sudden passing left Olivia not only heartbroken but also at the mercy of relatives who saw her vulnerability as an opportunity. Her parents had been generous and successful, known for their sprawling ranch and thriving business ventures. But with their unexpected deaths, Olivia discovered the harshness of greed. Her aunts and uncles, who had barely been present during her childhood, swooped in like vultures. They claimed everything: her parents' savings, the business, even the cherished belongings that held sentimental value. By the time the legal battles settled, all that was left for Olivia was the family's old ranch house, a crumbling relic of a better time. Alone in the world and without financial support, Olivia had to fend for herself. She took on whatever work she could find, cleaning houses, tending livestock for neighbors, and helping in local stores. Her goal was simple: to earn enough to pay for her education and keep a roof over her head. Despite her hardships, she carried herself with quiet dignity, never letting the bitterness of her situation harden her heart. But her relatives weren't satisfied with what they had taken. One afternoon, they returned, their faces set with determination. Olivia opened the door to find her aunts and uncles standing there, their expressions cold and businesslike. "You can keep the house," one of her uncles announced brusquely, "but there's a condition." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "What condition?" "You must marry Lucas," her aunt declared, as though it was the most reasonable demand in the world. "Who is Lucas?" Olivia asked, confused and wary. "A wealthy man from the city," her uncle said. "He's looking for a wife, and he's willing to pay generously. If you refuse, we'll sell the house." Olivia stared at them, stunned. The house was all she had left of her family, a fragile connection to a past she held dear. Losing it would mean losing everything. Yet the idea of marrying a stranger, especially under such conditions, felt like a betrayal of her own agency. "Why would he want to marry me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't question it," her aunt snapped. "This is a good opportunity for you. Besides, it's not up to you to decide." Cornered and with no options, Olivia reluctantly agreed. The wedding was hastily arranged, and within weeks, she found herself standing at the altar beside Lucas, a man she barely knew. He was tall, confident, and impeccably dressed, his polished demeanor contrasting sharply with the simple life Olivia had known. He looked at her with detachment, as though she were just another transaction in his busy life. As they exchanged vows, Olivia felt a deep sadness settle in her chest. This was not how she had imagined her life would unfold. Yet, she held her head high, determined to face whatever came next with resilience. After the ceremony, Lucas wasted no time in whisking Olivia away to the city. Their first night together was awkward and distant. Lucas, preoccupied with his business ventures, barely spoke to her. When she tried to start a conversation, he dismissed her questions with curt replies. "I'm here to work and make money," he said bluntly. "That's all you need to know." Olivia was taken aback by his coldness. "But we're married." Shouldn't we at least try to get to know each other? Lucas gave her a long, assessing look. Your relatives told me you weren't educated. But I can see that's not true. You're sharp, Olivia. But I'm not here for a relationship. This is just a convenience. Her heart sank. She had known from the start that this was a marriage of necessity. But hearing it stated so plainly hurt more than she had anticipated. That night, as Lucas retreated to his office, Olivia sat alone in their new home, staring out at the glittering city lights. She thought of the life she had left behind, of her parents and the warmth they had once brought to her world. She wondered if she would ever feel that sense of belonging again. Despite her despair, Olivia resolved not to let her circumstances break her. She knew she couldn't change the past, but she could shape her future. Even if her marriage was hollow, she would find a way to build a life that was meaningful to her. For now, survival was her priority, and she was no stranger to enduring the unendurable. The city was a far cry from the quiet simplicity of Olivia's hometown. Towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and the constant hum of activity made her feel like a stranger in her own life. Lucas, ever busy with his work, offered no guidance or comfort. He was polite enough, but his words carried little warmth, and his actions were driven by practicality rather than affection. On their first morning together, Olivia woke to find Lucas already gone. A note on the dining table read, "Breakfast is in the fridge. Don't wait up." The briefness of it stung, but she reminded herself that this was the arrangement she had agreed to. She busied herself with unpacking and organizing the house, trying to turn it into something resembling a home. That evening, when Lucas returned, Olivia greeted him with a warm meal she had prepared, a simple dish from her childhood. "You must be hungry after a long day," she said, setting the table. To her surprise, Lucas declined. "I already ate in town," he said flatly. "You can go ahead without me." "But I made this for both of us," she said, her voice tinged with disappointment. Lucas sighed, clearly annoyed. "Listen, Olivia. Don't get the wrong idea. We're married. Yes. But only in name. I did this to keep my parents off my back, not to play house. So don't expect too much from me." His words hit her like a slap. She had known their marriage was a transaction, but hearing it spelled out so coldly made her feel small and unwanted. "Then why did you agree to marry me at all?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lucas shrugged. "My parents wouldn't stop pestering me about settling down. Now I can send them photos and keep them happy. That's all there is to it." Olivia sat in stunned silence as Lucas retreated to his study. She had never felt more alone. Her relatives had used her for their own gain, and now Lucas was doing the same. It was as if her life no longer belonged to her, but rather to everyone who saw her as a means to an end. Determined not to let the situation define her, Olivia sought ways to regain a sense of agency. She approached Lucas the next day with a request. "Since I have nothing to do during the day, could you help me start a small business? I'd like to earn my own money and keep myself busy." Lucas didn't even look up from his laptop. "Why would you need to work? This house has everything you could want: food, TV, a comfortable bed. Isn't that enough?" "It's not about money," Olivia said, trying to keep her frustration in check. "I just want something meaningful to do." Lucas dismissed her with a wave. "There's no need for that. You'll only complicate things." Her disappointment was sharp, but Olivia refused to give up. She began exploring the city during the day, searching for opportunities. Quietly, she applied for jobs, her parents' long-forgotten lessons on independence guiding her. After several weeks, she secured a position as a sales assistant at an electronics store. Her job brought her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. It was tiring work, but it allowed her to stand on her own 2 feet. She kept her job a secret, knowing Lucas wouldn't approve. Her small victories, earning her own money, making friends among her co-workers, helped her regain a sense of self. Back at home, Lucas remained oblivious to her efforts. He spent his evenings absorbed in work or out with colleagues, barely acknowledging Olivia's presence. Yet, despite his indifference, he began to notice small changes. The way Olivia carried herself, the quiet confidence she exuded, was different from the girl he had married. One evening, as Lucas sat alone at the dining table, he tasted a meal Olivia had left for him in the fridge. The flavors were rich and comforting, a stark contrast to the takeout he was used to. For the first time, he wondered if there was more to Olivia than he had allowed himself to see. But just as quickly, he pushed the thought aside. She's just a means to an end, he muttered to himself. Yet deep down, something about her had begun to unsettle him, forcing him to confront feelings he wasn't ready to admit. The weeks turned into months, and Olivia settled into her routine. Her job at the electronics store brought her a small but significant sense of accomplishment. She had always valued hard work, and earning her own money even without Lucas's knowledge reminded her of the independence she had fought so hard to preserve. Every morning, she rose early, prepared herself for the day, and left before Lucas was awake. She returned home in the evening, ensuring she arrived before him to keep her secret safe. Her days were long, but they were hers, and for the first time in a while, she felt like she was living for herself. One morning, Lucas, who had taken the day off, noticed Olivia leaving the house earlier than usual. Curiosity piqued. He decided to follow her discreetly. He watched as her taxi stopped in front of a store, and Olivia stepped out, greeting her co-workers with a smile. From his car, Lucas observed her chatting warmly with customers, arranging products, and moving with a sense of purpose that took him by surprise. For a moment, Lucas felt a flicker of pride. He had assumed Olivia would simply idle away her time at home, content with the comfort his money provided. But here she was, proving him wrong. Yet alongside that pride came a twinge of guilt. He had dismissed her aspirations without a second thought, and now he realized how wrong he had been. When Olivia returned home that evening, she found Lucas waiting for her. His tone was calm but curious. "Where were you today?" he asked. Olivia hesitated. "I had some errands to run," she replied cautiously, unsure of how much he knew. "Errands," he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "You were at a store, working." Her heart sank. "I needed something to do," she said quietly. "I've been bored at home, and I wanted to earn my own money. I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't approve." To her surprise, Lucas didn't react with anger. Instead, he nodded slowly. "I'm not upset," he said. "I just didn't expect it. But I suppose I shouldn't have underestimated you." The words caught Olivia off guard. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. She nodded and excused herself, retreating to her room with a mix of relief and uncertainty. Over the next few days, Lucas began to see Olivia in a new light. Her independence, her quiet strength, and the way she carried herself with grace despite their difficult circumstances made him question the assumptions he had made about her. For the first time, he found himself genuinely curious about her thoughts and feelings. One evening, Lucas came home earlier than usual. He found Olivia in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The scene was unexpectedly comforting. "Need any help?" he asked, surprising even himself. Olivia glanced at him, her expression neutral. "I think I've got it," she replied, her tone neither cold nor warm. Lucas lingered in the doorway, watching her work. "I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe I've been unfair to you." She paused, turning to face him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've handled this situation with more grace than I would have expected. I underestimated you, Olivia, and I'm sorry for that." His words were hesitant, but they carried a sincerity that Olivia hadn't heard before. For a moment, she allowed herself to hope that perhaps Lucas was beginning to see her as more than just a placeholder in his life. "Thank you," she said softly, turning back to her work. She didn't let her guard down completely, but the small acknowledgement was enough to plant a seed of hope. As Lucas sat at the dining table that night, eating the meal Olivia had prepared, he found himself watching her more closely. There was something about her presence, steady, unassuming, and quietly determined, that unsettled and intrigued him in equal measure. He had married her out of convenience. But now, he was beginning to see that there was far more to Olivia than he had ever allowed himself to notice. For Olivia, the moment felt like a shift. However slight, she still guarded her heart, knowing how easily it could be hurt again. But for the first time, she wondered if Lucas's walls were beginning to crack and whether there might be room for something real to grow between them. The subtle shift in Lucas's attitude toward Olivia was undeniable. He started coming home earlier, finding excuses to spend more time in her company. Though he didn't say it outright, his actions spoke volumes. He began asking her about her day, genuinely listening to her answers, and offering to help with small tasks around the house. It was a far cry from the man who once dismissed her with curt, impersonal remarks. For Olivia, the change was disorienting but not unwelcome. She approached his newfound attentiveness with caution, wary of trusting too soon. Yet, as days turned into weeks, she found herself softening in his presence. Lucas was no longer the cold, distant figure she had married out of obligation. Instead, he was becoming someone she could talk to, someone she could begin to understand. One evening, after dinner, Lucas surprised Olivia with an unexpected proposition. "I want you to come work with me at my office," he said, his tone earnest. Olivia blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "You want me to work with you?" "Yes," Lucas replied. "I've seen how capable you are, and I think you'd be a great asset. Besides, I'd rather spend my days working alongside someone I trust." The words took Olivia by surprise. For so long, she had been treated as a convenience, a means to an end. But now, Lucas was acknowledging her abilities and inviting her into his world. It felt like a turning point, a chance to build something real together. "I'll think about it," she said cautiously, though deep down, she felt a spark of excitement. The next morning, Lucas took her to his office. The sleek, modern building stood in stark contrast to the rustic simplicity of Olivia's childhood home. As they entered, Olivia couldn't help but marvel at the polished interior, the bustling energy of the staff, and the confident way Lucas moved through the space. "This is where I spend most of my time," he said, gesturing around the office. "And if you decide to join me, I'll make sure you have everything you need to succeed." Olivia nodded, her apprehension slowly giving way to curiosity. Lucas introduced her to his team, explaining that she would be assisting with sales and project coordination if she agreed to the role. His colleagues greeted her warmly, and for the first time, Olivia felt like she was being integrated into Lucas's life in a meaningful way. Their partnership didn't stop at the office. Inspired by Olivia's resilience and ambition, Lucas suggested they expand their ventures beyond the city. Together, they explored the idea of starting a business in Olivia's hometown, a way to give back to the community that had shaped her. Olivia loved the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to rebuild bridges and reclaim her roots. When they returned to the small town to set up the business, the reception was mixed. Some villagers, remembering Olivia's hardships, greeted her with warmth and admiration. Others, including her aunts and uncles, were less enthusiastic. They had expected Olivia's life to end in struggle, not success. Seeing her now, confident, accomplished, and standing beside a supportive husband was a blow to their pride. Despite the mixed reactions, Olivia threw herself into the project with determination. She and Lucas worked tirelessly to establish the new business, combining their skills and building something that reflected both their values. It wasn't easy, but the challenges only strengthened their bond. As they spent more time together, Lucas began to open up about his own struggles and insecurities. He admitted that his obsession with success had been a way to shield himself from vulnerability. Olivia listened without judgment, sharing her own fears and dreams in return. The conversations brought them closer, laying the foundation for a relationship built on trust and mutual respect. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their newly renovated ranch house, Lucas reached for Olivia's hand. "I never thought I'd say this," he began, his voice unsteady. "But you've changed my life. I didn't expect to feel this way about you. And I know I've made mistakes. But I want us to move forward together." Olivia looked at him, her heart full. "I never thought I'd feel this way either," she admitted. "But I think we've both grown. And I think we're better together than we ever were apart." Their shared acknowledgement marked a new chapter in their relationship. What had begun as a transaction was transforming into something real. Something neither of them had anticipated. Together, they decided to focus not just on their professional ambitions but also on building a life that reflected their shared values. With each passing day, Lucas and Olivia grew closer, their love deepening in ways that felt both unexpected and profoundly right. They had overcome the shadows of their pasts. And now, they were ready to face the future side by side. Months passed, and Olivia and Lucas's life together grew richer and more fulfilling. Their shared ventures flourished, with the new business in Olivia's hometown becoming a cornerstone of the community. People marveled at the couple's teamwork, their ability to complement each other's strengths, and the genuine care they put into their work. For Olivia, the success was about more than just business. It was a chance to reclaim her narrative and prove that she was more than the victim her relatives had tried to make her. As they settled into their new rhythm, Lucas continued to surprise Olivia with his evolving affection and attentiveness. He had become the partner she never expected, someone who genuinely valued her thoughts and feelings. Their relationship, once a hollow arrangement, was now filled with shared dreams, mutual respect, and a deepening love. One evening, as they walked through the quiet streets of their hometown after a community event, Lucas stopped and turned to Olivia. "I need to ask you something," he said, his tone serious but tender. Olivia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is it?" Lucas knelt on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Will you marry me again?" he asked. "Not for anyone else's expectations or convenience, but because I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She laughed softly, a mix of disbelief and joy. "Lucas," she said, shaking her head gently, "we're already married." "I know," he replied with a sheepish smile. "But this time, I want it to mean something. I want it to be a choice we make for ourselves." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I'll marry you again." Their second wedding was a stark contrast to their first. It was intimate, held at the ranch house with only close friends and a few members of the community. Olivia wore a simple but elegant dress, her hair adorned with wildflowers. Lucas couldn't take his eyes off her, his love evident in every glance. As they exchanged vows, there was no trace of the cold formality that had defined their original ceremony. Instead, their words were filled with heartfelt promises and the kind of sincerity that only comes from a shared journey. The months following their renewed vows were filled with joy and new beginnings. One morning, Olivia sat on the porch, sipping coffee and enjoying the crisp Montana air, when she felt an unusual wave of nausea. Concerned but hopeful, she decided to visit the town doctor. The news she received left her both overjoyed and overwhelmed. She was pregnant. When Olivia shared the news with Lucas that evening, his reaction surprised her. He froze for a moment, then broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. "We're having a baby?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. "Yes," Olivia said, her own smile mirroring his. "You're going to be a father." Lucas pulled her into an embrace, his happiness palpable. "This is the best news I've ever heard," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't wait to meet our child." Their joy was shared by Lucas's parents, who had long dreamed of becoming grandparents. When the baby boy was born, the entire family gathered to celebrate, their once fractured connections now stronger than ever. Olivia, holding her newborn son, felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had found love, built a life of her own, and created a family she could be proud of. Even Olivia's aunts and uncles, who had once sought to exploit her, were left speechless by her transformation. The woman they had expected to falter had instead thrived, turning her struggles into a story of resilience and triumph. As Olivia and Lucas sat together on the porch one evening, their son asleep in Olivia's arms, Lucas reached over and took her hand. "We've come so far," he said softly. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Olivia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And I wouldn't have wanted to do it without you," she replied. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought them closer than either could have imagined. Together, they had built a life defined by love, respect, and the courage to start anew. And as they looked out over the horizon, they knew that their story was only just beginning. As Olivia and Lucas sat on their porch, their baby boy peacefully asleep in his mother's arms, they reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. What began as a forced marriage built on convenience and misunderstanding had blossomed into a true partnership, rooted in love, trust, and mutual respect. Together, they had overcome betrayal, indifference, and doubt, transforming their lives and building a family that symbolized hope and resilience. Their story is a testament to the power of growth, forgiveness, and finding unexpected love in life's challenges. Olivia and Lucas had proven that even the most difficult beginnings could lead to a beautiful and fulfilling future. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more heartwarming tales of love, resilience, and triumph. Like, comment, and share to inspire others. See you in the next story.